Good morning. This is the Office of Public Affairs at NRC headquarters. The press conference with Chairman Jaczko will begin shortly. As a reminder, for those who have questions, please email them to holly.harrington, that's HOLLY HARRINGTON at nrc.gov. That will be the method with which we will be taking questions over the phone.
We are exceptionally popular this morning. Can't understand why. Good morning. This is Elliot Brunner. I'm the Director of Public Affairs at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I have with me Chairman Jaczko, who's just completed his speech to the NEA. We will take questions here from the reporters in the room. And I have some questions which have already been relayed in through Holly Harrington that I will ask, and I would ask you to please send Holly questions, holly.harrington@nrc.gov, and she'll relay them to me, and I'll ask them. It's a little easier than trying to manage a call with over 30 people on it. So with that, I give you Chairman Jaczko.
Thank you, Elliot. I'm here in Charlotte to have an opportunity to speak to the Nuclear Energy Assembly and had an opportunity to visit the summer nuclear power plant in Jenkinsville, South Carolina, which is one of the sites where the Commission has recently approved new licenses. And so I had an opportunity to tour that facility yesterday and see the progress that they're making on construction, and had a really good opportunity to talk to our 3 resident inspectors who are at the site, who are a part of the NRC inspection presence to make sure that the construction is done in accordance with our requirements, with the design that we approved and the license that we approved. I had an opportunity to speak this morning about a number of topics, including an update on where we stand with our Fukushima efforts. I think we are making good progress on many of these efforts, but there's still a lot of work ahead of us, and I still continue to believe that we need to look for ways to address the issues from Fukushima in a more timely way than we're currently looking at. I also talked a little bit about the importance of as we look forward to safety challenges that will come in the future, that it's very important that we continue to rely on our expertise, but that we continue to develop new tools and new ways to address what are becoming more and more complex problems. In many ways, as I said, the low-hanging fruit has been picked when it comes to nuclear safety issues. The issues we're seeing now are I believe, going to continue to be more and more vexing and challenging and require more sophisticated tools and analysis techniques. So I think we have to make the investment now in better tools, in programs that are training the next generation of regulators and training the next generation of people working in the nuclear industry in new techniques and new ways to look at risk, to look at ultimately managing the safety at these facilities. So, and finally, I just closed that speech with a brief reminder of the need to fully utilize the communication tools that are available. At the NRC, we are continuing to enhance our use of social media, and there's really, I think, no reason why all the nuclear power plants in this country can't fully embrace and endorse those kinds of ways to reach out and provide information to members of the public. So with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Why don't we start here with the Charlotte Observer?
Okay, thank you. Can you elaborate on your reasons for resigning?
I really don't have anything more to add on than I've said on that. The timing simply was, I thought, appropriate for the President and the Senate to be able to look at finding a replacement for me and a successor for me, and I want to give them the opportunity to do that. And so my resignation is contingent on that happening, and so I'll continue to take and do my job.
Yes, sir.
I have not been to the new construction site at Southern, or at the Vogel site. I've been to Vogel many years ago for the existing fleet, but what I've seen in general, as I talked a little bit about in my speech today, is that I think there is a strong effort at standardization, and I think that is going to turn out to be good for the agency. It's going to be good for nuclear safety. I think it'll allow us to utilize our resources in a better way, because we will be able to ensure that issues are resolved in a consistent way with both units. And that just, quite frankly, halves the amount of, in a way, the amount of work that we have to do, because we know that if we review a solution once, it'll be done at both facilities, and I think that's a positive. So, so far that appears to be the case, and I look forward to to continuing to see that happen with the standardization. Now, in terms of progress, it's not really up to us to judge progress. You have to make sure that the people we have identified issues, which is, in my mind, a good thing. It means, one, that our program is working, that our inspection program is effective. We are identifying issues, and so far, both the licensees appear to be approaching those resolutions in the right way. The issue, as I mentioned, with the rebar, they are modifying the design, restoring it back to the original design, which is compliant, we believe, with the required code requirements. And so I think that was the right approach. I would have been more concerned if there was an effort to try and seek a change to the license to try and justify that the change that had already been made was acceptable. Now, there were practical implications for that. At the summer site, our residents mentioned to me that much of the rebar had already been kind of pre-constructed, if you will. And by the time I got there, it was back to, I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but back to just kind of the straight rods and back sorted into length and the other quantities that they measured constituted. So that was the right thing for safety to do that, and so that was, I think, a promising sign for me that if the approach continues to be that way, then the plants will be constructed safely. But we'll continue to watch.
Before we take another question, I just want to ask our colleagues on the phone if you can, at all possible, mute your phone, because we're picking up a lot of keyboard and rustling of papers. If you're at a broadcast outlet and you've got music or something, I'll make an exception. Yes, sir, here on the front row.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Jim Ostroff with Flash Nuclear. And asked about this yesterday, Reed, commenting about your resignation, had said that we hope that we have a replacement in place before the end of your term. But he said that if we don't, and I'm just quoting, Greg will be there for the duration. And if something doesn't work out, he can always be renominated. Will you accept renomination?
Well, right now, my focus is on nuclear safety, and I have been privileged and honored to serve in this position, and right now I intend to continue to serve out my term. And if by that time a successor has not been found, then I'll deal with those issues at that time. But I'd be on my own.
Okay, and I could just follow up. And you're saying that you would remain as chairman if the successor has not been named.
Greg, my resignation was contingent on an individual being nominated and confirmed as chairman.
And if I could also, very often here, the president, whoever the president is, has named a sitting commissioner, such as yourself, to fill the role as chairman. Isn't it a bit out of the ordinary for the president to say that he's bypassing any more sitting commissioners that will name someone from the outside?
No, it's certainly not out of the ordinary, and but again, beyond my statement, I don't really have anything to add on this point. Those issues ultimately, who is on the commission and is really responsible for the president and the Senate. So I would refer you to.
Thank you.
All right, Charlotte Business Journal.
You voted against
anything that you saw down there make you feel any better, any worse about?
Well, I was supportive of the design itself. I thought we had done a very thorough review for the design, and I had a chance to see some of the features of that design starting to take shape. And so I was very comfortable that the staff had done a very thorough review of really kind of the known issues. Where my concerns were really how we were going to ensure that the lessons learned from Fukushima are implemented. And but I felt that there was a way to do that through the licensing process, and my colleagues did not agree, and that's just a part of the process. I think that shows that we have a healthy debate on the commission, and we're able to disagree, and when we do that, we still move forward to make decisions.
Does it make you think they had to learn the lesson? I don't know if you feel like it should have been a part of the process. Yeah, well, realistically, we're still identifying the specific solutions. And some aspects of the AP1000 design will better cope with some of the important lessons, like the ability to maintain power for a long period of time, the so-called station blackout. So, that design has some inherent features that make it able to cope with that. But in general, a lot of things are still too early in the construction process for us to see exactly how they will address issues, how they'll deal with some of the emergency procedure changes that'll be important and necessary as we go forward. So the point was, in my mind, that we are granting them, when we issue the license, it was a license to operate. It's a little bit different than the way we used to do things, where we give them a permit to construct and then a license to operate. This was both of those at once. So it was effectively saying that at this point they are safe to operate as long as they built the plant the way it's been licensed. And I felt that needed a condition, a kind of an asterisk, if you will, which is, right, but they have to make sure that they make the solution. So I thought we should put that in the license directly. And that's really what the issue was about. Had that been in there, then I would have supported the license.
Okay, before I take a question or two from the ones that are coming on the phone, I'll call on Thomson Reuters. Rick Rothacker, you got a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, during your time, your fellow commissioners have drawn a lot of attention to personal management issues, maybe gone away from some of your regulatory concerns. How do you feel about that?
I enjoy my job a lot, and it's challenging, and that's part of what makes it enjoyable. We have a number of people on the commission who come with strong expertise and knowledge in these issues, and I think the commission process is a good process. We want debate, we want discussion, we want to have engaging conversations, and as I've said many times, I'm a passionate person. I care passionately about nuclear safety, and so I enjoy the opportunity to engage my colleagues in debates and discussions.
Okay, we have a question. The first that came in was from the Union Tribune at San Diego. It has to do with songs. It's two questions. The first one is, the NRC has indicated it is looking into the review and approval of replacement steam generators at the San Onofre nuclear plant that are experiencing problems. Did plant operator, Southern California Edison, properly inform the Commission of the extent of design changes? Should there have been a more thorough regulatory safety review? Those two questions are question one.
Well, that's an issue that we are addressing. We have chartered what we call an augmented inspection team, and part of their responsibility to identify whether our process was properly followed by the licensee. It's what we call a 50-59 process, where they can. Some plants can make some degree of changes if they satisfy certain conditions, and so we're reviewing that. But I think beyond that, it's going to be important as we get that information to ask ourselves an important question, which is, if they did it consistent with our regulations, then maybe we need to take a look at changing our regulations. Because I think for a significant replacement of a component like this, we do want to make sure that we are properly reviewing it. And one of the real positives that I think that just shows, I think the view that many people have of the agency is that I've had many people come up to me and say, I think if you had reviewed this, even some of the real critics of the agency have said that, I think if you had reviewed this, you would have caught them. I think that, to me, is really a strong statement about about the technical competency of the NRC staff, and ultimately, I think a reason why we really need to take a look at this process one way or another, because I think a significant change like this, it's in everybody's best interest, quite frankly, to have as many eyes as possible so that we don't have something like the steam generator issues that we did.
The follow-on question is, what progress has been made? What progress has been made on the Commission's augmented inspection toward identifying and resolving the root cause of the two areas underlying the plant? Could our folks on the line please put themselves on mute? We're getting a lot of noise here in the room. Thank you.
Well, ultimately, the responsibility right now is for San Onofre to identify the root cause and the root causes of this failure. We have our augmented inspection team, which is in a number of issues and is periodically inspecting the work that they're doing to develop that root cause and that root cause analysis. But ultimately, it'll be up to them to submit a report to us that outlines what they think the causes of that are. And then we'll have to review that and determine if, one, that we agree with the root causes, and then that we agree with whatever corrective actions they think will address the issues. So we're still waiting on that. We don't have a date or a time certain for that, and in the end, I think this needs to be dictated by the interest of safety and not by any other timelines.
Okay, Mr. Massey with Climate Wire.
Massey, Climate Wire. At this time, due to your current position, is it possible that you might sit with the NRC in a different capacity? And then the second part of that question, what qualities do you hope to?
Well, if and when my resignation happens, then I will likely be moving on. I'll leave the agency. And in terms of the qualifications, it's really up to, as I said, the President and the Senate to determine who is best qualified for this commission. I certainly have worked to instill within the agency and to really enhance our focus on our mission of public health and safety, and I do hope that a successor will continue in that vein.
Mr. Adams.
Dr. Jaczko, you've mentioned many times the challenge that you have with resources as a result of Fukushima. Yet your budget requests, not just your budget allocation, but your budget requests, have actually been going down over the last 3 or 4 years. Fukushima was completely unplanned. Why didn't you ask for a supplemental budget increase?
Well, we do our budget as part of an overall federal budget, and right now I'm not too concerned about financial resources. Our challenges when it comes to dealing with issues like Fukushima right now is more about skill set and the expertise of staff that we have, not really an overall dollar amount. So we have sufficient financial resources to address the issues we need to address. And right now, as we look at the issues for Fukushima, I don't see NRC analysis being kind of a restriction on the time it'll take to get the work done that needs to get done. So I think we're in a pretty good position to address the issues and to deal with them going forward.
But you don't reallocate resources from other things like new license applications, for example.
No, we have not had to do that. We are moving forward on our new reactor licensing, pretty much consistent with what we plan to do and consistent with what the expectations are of the applicants. Right now, most of the work for the Fukushima is being done by our research office and our Office of Reactor Regulation. We have some involvement of our new reactor office, but it's not, to my knowledge, really supplanted any other change the timeline for any of the work that we're doing.
Before we move on, just again a logistical matter. Please hit *6 to mute your phone, and to let you know that we are recording this back at the NRC office so that we can make a transcript of it, although timing of that. Nick, I'll take one more question here. I'll take some more from the phone lines and then come back here in the room. WFAA?
I just want you to clarify about the visit yesterday down to South Carolina. You are comfortable with the way things are in that construction, and or
question that, in terms of the license, I think it's something that we should have put in the license to really guarantee that when that plant operates, that all the changes were going to be made. There are other ways to guarantee that, and I'll continue to work to make sure that those other ways are implemented. But right now we have a license, and now our job changes to making sure that they build it consistent with the license. And as I said, we've identified some issues, so those issues are addressed appropriately, and we will watch that. We'll inspect it. We'll review it. So then I'll continue to be comfortable. But there will be issues as we go forward, and so we'll continue to have a strong presence there and make sure that it's built appropriately.
Okay, a question from Ryan Tracy on the telephone. Who would you recommend to replace you, and what have you said to folks in the administration or Congress about a replacement?
I'm not involved in the process of identifying a replacement.
Okay, bear with me. Okay, yes, sir, in the back here, you had a question?
Chairman Jim Bradley with Channel Line here in Charlotte. Real quickly, are you going to look at either of the plants you're looking at? But beyond that, there's been some criticism of the agency's overall community emergency planning with regard to dropping the mandate scenarios, education release. Can you talk about that, whether you have concerns about that?
No, over the years, the Commission has made a very concerted effort to update and enhance our regulations for emergency preparedness. That involved a number of changes, one of which was to incorporate within the cycle of exercises that we do an exercise that focused around hostile action, so some type of intentional terrorist type of event, and considering that type of a scenario. So we had to incorporate that into our process. As we were looking at doing that, we really came to the realization that many of our exercises were very becoming almost too formulaic. And so one of the things that we want to do is introduce realism and take away that guaranteed assumption that there's always going to come to a certain endpoint in which everybody knows they get to make a certain decision. So I look at this as a real enhancement because it will add realism to these exercises. It doesn't mean that these exercises are taking away the guarantee that there will be a release. It doesn't mean that there won't be a release considered. It means that we don't tell people ahead of time that that's what's going to happen. It's the difference between going in and taking a test where the teacher tells you, the subject is going to be the things that we've learned the last 3 weeks in American history, versus the teacher coming to saying, I'm going to ask you, when did Christopher Columbus discover America? We were doing a little bit more of the latter, and we wanted to get a little bit more of the former. So people are really testing their decision-making skills. So that taking away that requirement was intended to give us the flexibility to make more challenging exercises, not less challenging.
Okay, you're a little player here.
I don't have a plan to at this time. Back here.
Could you hold on just a minute? We have somebody on the phone who has not muted their phone and is typing. Lots of clicking. Can you please mute your phone by hitting *6? Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to just now respond to a question. You said you intend to serve out your full term and even go longer if necessary. So I'm wondering if anything has changed since Monday when you tendered your resignation and why you resigned if you're planning to serve out your term.
First of all, I did not say what you repeated back.
So you announced your resignation?
I announced my resignation contingent on a successor being nominated and confirmed. And until that time, I intend to continue to serve as chairman.
But you intend to fill out your term?
It depends on the process, whether a successor is nominated and confirmed. So if that happens before the end of my term, then I would leave at that time. If that doesn't happen before the end of my term, then I continue to serve.
But I don't understand why would they put forward a new nominee if you're intending to serve out your term anyway?
We can probably, I could talk to you, through the process offline.
I'm happy to talk with you afterwards and explain some of the mechanics. Do we have any more questions here in the room? Yes, sir.
Yes, Chuck from with South Carolina Business. There's some buzz about SMRs. I was interested in your thoughts about the future of this project and just what is happening at the NRC regarding the analysis.
Well, there is a interest right now in so-called small modular reactors. We have a number of companies that have come forward expressing an interest in wanting to seek approval of designs or potentially actual construction of sites that would build these small modular reactors. In general, I think we're in a pretty good position to evaluate and do the reviews that we need to do. Some of the technologies that are being considered are a little bit more what I would call non-traditional reactor technologies, so not the type of reactor technologies that we have generally used in this country, or at least on a commercial scale. So some of those more non-traditional would involve a little bit more infrastructure development at the agency, but I think those technologies are also probably a little bit farther out in terms of the review. So right now I feel pretty comfortable we're in a good place to review those applications if they come in. We are watching very closely a program the Department of Energy has established to fund the licensing process and help provide support to 2 projects that involve small modular reactors. And so we're interacting with them very closely to ensure that as they make decisions about the projects that they intend to fund, that we're able to do our work in a timely way when it comes to the safety reviews.
Okay. Yes, sir. Reuters?
John, what do you think your legacy will be as chairman?
Well, in the end, I think it's up to other people to talk about legacies right now. I'm focused on continuing to make sure that we continue to have good, strong oversight over nuclear power plants and all the other materials and facilities that we regulate, and that keeps me pretty busy.
The industry's focus on safety improved?
You know, I think there's always going to be areas that we can do better on for safety. I think the Fukushima event was a wake-up call, hopefully for everyone. As I've said on previous occasions, I think there were people throughout this industry that had come to a belief that an accident of that magnitude simply was never going to happen, that we had really come to the point at which we'd eliminated that. I've always tried to do my job without making that assumption. And I think that this Fukushima event, I have seen a change in the way that people talk, in licensees talk, and people at the agency, really throughout this industry now, because it did happen. And I think, so I think that has put more focus on safety. But, we have challenges, we have issues, and as I talked about in my talk, I think we don't do a good enough job identifying issues, bringing them to resolution in a timely way. And I think that's something that the industry needs to take a more proactive effort in working on. And I think the NRC needs to figure out better strategies for us to be able to do that, because safety issues that take 10, 15 years to resolve is not helpful for anyone. It's not getting issues resolved so the public can feel comfortable. It's not freeing up resources to tackle the next round of issues that will come in front of us. So I think that's an area where we do need to continue to make progress, and where I think the industry has work to do as well.
Yes, sir. In the back here.
Safety challenges for existing plants. Obviously, there are 2 here that aren't spring chickens. Are there concerns that you have about plants like Catawba and McGuire and the age they are? That more specific about those challenges?
Well, we haven't really seen things at this point that I would say are really a result of age, so to speak. We have seen at some plants throughout the country, and not necessarily at McGuire or Catawba, failures of components or equipment or materials that take a long time to manifest themselves, but they may have gone back to some failure that happened initially at construction or some error that was done there. So, it's not clear yet that aging issues are going to be a real significant challenge, but there just are a number of known technical issues that need addressing, and they're more kind of a generic issues than they are specific issues. Although the performance, we have seen some challenges at Catawba recently, and all of the plants invariably have at some point a difficult issue that they work through and need to address. But over the last several years, we have seen some changes in the performance of operators and responding to events. There's been a concerted effort to address that, and I think we've seen some signs that there's been progress made in that, and I think that's a good thing.
We have time for a couple more questions. I've got one that came in from the phone, and Rod, you raised your hand.
Yes. State-of-the-art reactor accident consequences analysis indicates that there are very few actual physical consequences from a reactor accident. And so does Fukushima. There really aren't very many or any physical consequences from that accident. What is the real challenge that we have?
Well, perhaps I look at it differently. I mean, I would say that there are real physical impacts from the accident. I mean, you have significant land contamination. You have a displaced population of nearly 90,000 people. What I think we see, because of the robustness and the defense in depth of the regulatory program, is that we have done a relatively good job over the years to very much reduce the likelihood of either significant increases in long-term health effects, namely cancers and other incidents of disease that could result from low levels of radiation exposure, and we have done a good job to eliminate the acute effects of radiation exposure, so the acute incidents that could lead to very immediate fatalities or other health effects. So that's what the SORCA study shows, but the SORCA study shows that in these severe accidents, you do have significant releases of radiation that need and require evacuations and other impacts that have significant real-world impacts on families, on homes, on communities, on the economy. So that's where I think our focus now needs to be, is making sure that the things that we're doing to address that first class, those health impacts, are also having the right kind of effect on these other kinds of impacts. And I'm not sure that the answer to that is yes. I think that's some work, an area where we need to do some work and really address it. So I'm very reluctant to ever say that, you know, the Fukushima, it's a good thing that the direct health effects seem to be very minimal from Fukushima, but the radiation-induced health effects, but there are tremendous physical effects as a result of the accident, and those are challenges that we need to address. I mean, you know, the accident simply was not acceptable, and I don't think there's very many people who find that it was.
I have a great closing question from CNN off the phone, but I will turn to Platts for the last in the house.
Thank you. Your decision to move on may have been gestating over some time, but it comes at a period here where probably a little before the agencies affect the general issues. Any coincidence, any tie-in, can you elaborate a bit?
Any Inspector General report that had nothing to do with this decision.
Nothing to do with it.
Nothing.
And the last question from CNN on the phone: what are your plans after leaving the agency once the successor issue is settled?
Well, given that it's unclear what the timing for that will be, I'm not at all pursuing any outside activities at this point. I have enjoyed very much my time at the agency. I care very passionately about the important role that government can play in protecting interests of the public, and I certainly hope at some point to be able to use what I've learned here and in fighting for those kinds of causes in the future. But at this point, I'm not looking for options. At the point at which a successor is identified and either confirmed or very close to being confirmed, then I'll begin looking at additional opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your joining us, both here and on the phone.